Hey everybody, welcome back to Laser Engraving 911. On this episode, I wanted to do an additional intro because what you're about to watch is a full workshop that I did back in 2025 for Laser MakerCon, and it's all about engraving glassware with a 5-watt UV laser by Commarker, the Omni One. And it also combines how to use the Pyburn Galvo grip with the Commarker Omni One, including all my settings. And last but not least, it is a full tutorial on how I paint fill all of that engraved glass with color. So yes, we'll be adding color to the engraved glass. Do me a favor, when you're watching this video, if you like it, make sure you give it a thumbs up, drop some comments of what you thought of the video in there. And other than that, I hope you have a great time watching it and you glean some great information. I'm telling you, this workshop is a beast. So if that sounds like something you want to get into, then buckle up, get your pen and paper out, because we're about to get into it on Laser Engraving 911. All right, so how do we get this label off the bottle? That is the question that I've been asking myself today. So I watched a few videos there. You could soak it off. You could, I saw one guy put an empty bottle in the oven and heated it up. That didn't seem too safe to me. So I figured we were just gonna use a heat gun and this little plastic razor blades. These are super handy. We're actually going to use these more in the tutorial. I'm just going to heat up the label starting here in sections and just kind of work my way to get this thing off so I can do a nice engraving right here. So let's get started. We'll try like first level, super hot. We'll go super hot. That's pretty good. Let's try that. Hey, look at that. Don't rip it. Don't rip. Come on. Oh, it needs a little bit more over here. Oh, nice. Okay, so now we just got to deal with this adhesive that's left over. And I think we're going to try my old trusty friend, methanol, to get that adhesive off. So let's go ahead and get some of that. So now we're going to get this glue off of here and we're going to use a little bit of methanol. I like to use methanol for lots of different stuff. Cleaning up acrylic, cleaning up Laser Max acrylic after I've done engraving it or cutting it and it's got soot or schmutz around the end. And it also works pretty well on adhesive. And you can wear gloves, probably should wear gloves. Anyways, I'm going to just go ahead and start wiping this away and you can kind of tell it's coming right off really, really well. I don't know if you can see that on camera, but it is coming right off. Dude, that's where it's at right there. Label gone, surface clean. All right, so now it's time to introduce you to my setup here. So what we're looking at here is the Commarker Omni One UV laser, which I do have other video reviews on my channel. So this is the laser we're going to be using today. And I've also got the Pyburn Galvo grip by Lens Digital here. So I've got this connected to the Omni One. And we do have some other tools that you're going to want to have when you're doing rotary glass engraving on the Omni One. So a couple of things you're going to want to have is you're going to want to have a focal stick, which I like to use instead of the red lasers there. You're going to want to have yourself a caliper so you can measure the diameter of the glass or bottle or whatever it is that you're working on. That is extremely important because you have to put that into Lightburn. Lens Digital makes this additional accessory now for the Pyburn Galvo grip, which is like a little support arm that you can move around the table to help hold up longer bottles like you'll see in a few minutes here in this video. And then you're also going to want to have yourself a little couple of bubble levels to make sure that your glass is level. I like to have this other little JDS flexible ruler for measuring things out as well. And the Pyburn Galvo grip also comes with different finger attachments that you can put on the Galvo grip here to extend the fingers depending on what kind of bottle you're grabbing, and we'll talk about that in a little bit too. And then last but not least, we're going to be using a little bit of my UV laser Pixi Dust, which is available on my site. But what this is an ultraviolet sensitive, really fine powder that you can put on glass so you can actually see the projection of the UV laser when you're getting ready to laser. Because if you don't have this powder dusted on the glass, you're not going to be able to see the projection like you would on other type of fiber laser or some kind of CO2 laser or something like that. So that is basically, in a nutshell, all the different tools and components that we're going to be using to engrave glass today. Not everything we do is going to be with the rotary tool, but for the rotary setup, these are the tools that I like to have. So this is a chuck style rotary. And what that means is that this is your chuck and these are your fingers that can either hold glasses by gripping it with these 3 fingers on the outside of the glass, or you can go in, put your glass in, and then expand out to hold the glass from the inside. Because as you rotate this, and this is a really nice fast way to rotate these teeth, is eventually they'll press on the inside of the glass, which is really cool. But right now, the way I have it figured, I want to change 2 things. So for this whiskey glass, what I want to do is that first of all, I want to make the fingers longer. And if you notice, there's 3 positions on these teeth here. And I want to go to the next position. That way, when I'm already maxed out, I can't expand any further, and that won't reach and allow me to put pressure on the inside of the glass. So I'm going to go to the next notch, and it's very easy to do that. You just grab, sometimes I don't even need this, but I try to keep it tight. You're just going to grab the Allen key and you're going to unscrew the little rubber fingers, and we're going to switch them out for the longer fingers, and we're going to go to the next notch. I'm going to grab the longer fingers, and I was on this position here, the first one, the closest one, and now I'm just going to go to the middle position on all the longer fingers. That will allow me to reach further into the glass and also go wide enough to expand on the glass. Whoop. Butterfingers. And so once again, the Pyburn Galvo Grip is going to come with lots of different accessories and different configurations. But for doing whiskey glasses, wine glasses, flutes, these are the 2 I use the most. So now we can shrink this a little bit, put our glass in, and then we're just going to keep expanding out. And another thing to keep in mind is the glass actually butts up against this flat part right here. I don't even know what this is called, but anyway, as you put it there, you want to make sure it's flush before you expand out. And I'm going to keep expanding out until I feel pressure on the glass, and then I'm going to hold this side and really tighten it. So there is no way that this glass is going to slip as it's rotating back and forth. I don't have the rotary on right now, and that's why I'm able to rotate it. But one of the things that I love about this rotary is how reliable it is, how strong it grips the glass, and how we can repeat the same engraving over and over again because it's so accurate, and run the job multiple times to create depth without ever worrying that it's not going to go back to its original position to do the engraving again. So a couple other little tidbits you want to know about the rotary is that this is really important. So this right here is how you're going to level your glass. You loosen it right here, and you can raise and lower to make sure that your glass is level, and that's where that other bubble level comes in really handy. So I like to put that there, and when I see it level, I just tighten this down really, really tight and then let go. So I know my glass is level there to the table, and we're almost ready to engrave. All right, so one little thing before we move on to engraving, and I promise we'll actually do some engraving, is that I just wanted to point out that we're not going to go into the initial setup and calibration of this specific rotary or any rotary on a Galvo laser. It is more involved, but it's something that you should learn how to do. And there is a great tutorial that is put out on Lightburn's YouTube page that I watched probably, I'm going to be honest, probably about 2 or 3 times to help me set up a rotary on a Galvo style laser. But after the 3rd time, I finally got it. What I will be sharing with you on the associated download page that goes with this tutorial is all my settings for the PyBurn Galvo grip with the CommMarker Omni 1 UV laser. I'll also share with you where you can download all my UV laser settings as well, and any other settings from Lightburn that we're going to be using in this tutorial. I will make sure that it's in the downloadable document. Now we've got that out of the way, let's get into some actual engraving. Come on.
Oh my God! Okay, it's happening. Everybody stay calm. What's the procedure, everyone? What's the
Okay, first up on our hit list is the wine bottle. I figure, why don't we just start go big or go home, right? So a couple of things you want to notice. I've got my focal stick out, I've got my caliper out, I've got my level out, and I've got this accessory that you can get with the PyBurn Galvo grip. And you can see exactly why it's necessary, because even though this thing is super grippy, you're still going to want some extra support over here to hold that wine bottle up, so this doesn't have to do all the heavy lifting. There is no way that this Galvo grip that I found, even with longer fingers, can hold the weight of a full wine bottle. So that is kind of the setup for this. So what I did was I loaded it in there, made sure that I docked this in the pins, and made sure that these wheels right here were lined up perfectly with the center of the rotary. So we have nice, even rolling there. So the next step we have to do is we need to focus to the bottle, and we need to measure the diameter of the bottle, because we're going to have to input that into Lightburn. So let's do that now. There we go. And I'm going to get it as close as I can with my focal stick. And then I'm going to use the tower fine adjustment to make sure I focus right to the surface of the bottle. Bam. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to check, make sure it's level, and it is. And then I'm going to get out my trusty caliper, and I'm going to do this for every glass that we're going to engrave. We're not going to sit here for every single glass and do this over and over again, but this is the process. Measure the diameter, and I'm coming up with 74.92 millimeters. That's the area I'm going to be engraving right on the top here. So 74.92 millimeters, and I'm going to input that into Lightburn now. All right, there's a couple of really important settings that I want to go over in Lightburn that I like to use when doing rotary engraving on bottles, whether that's glass cups, wine bottles, wine glasses, champagne flutes. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to open up my settings, and I'm going to show you, these are my settings for engraving glass, and I have bidirectional fill turned on. I have cross hatching turned on, and I'll explain why. I have my line interval at 0.0500. Lines per inch is at 508. Now, I want you to pay special attention here to this fill shapes individually, because that's going to be important here in a second. So make sure all these things are checked. You can copy my settings if you want, if you get the Omni 1 UV laser or any other UV laser for that matter. These are Lightburn specific for rotary engraving. Now, we'll go out of the settings window, and I'm going to hit start like I'm going to engrave, and it's going to give me this other rotary marking window. Really important. See where I have this run whole shapes if possible? That is very important. What that's going to do is it's going to look at my graphic that I'm going to engrave on the bottle, and any shape that is under 25 millimeters, it's going to fill it the same way it would fill a shape if we were doing flat engraving. So it's not going to do bidirectional, which takes a long time, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. It's going to do that whole shape at once, and it's going to use my dueling crosshatch setting that you saw I had set up in there, and it's really fast, so it can dramatically speed up the time that it takes for you to engrave glass by using these settings. I'll say it again, it can dramatically increase the time for engraving when you use these settings. If you don't use these settings, you're going to always default to that back and forth as it's rotating. So that's fine, and it will use that if the piece of your image is larger than 25 millimeters. But when I can avoid it, I try to always use these settings to speed up my production time, and I just wanted to share that with you. All right, I've got Lightburn open. This is the graphic that we're going to be using. And remember I said we're going to have to input that. So let's go into Laser Tools, Rotary Setup, and you can see here how I have my rotary setup. I'm also going to upload this to the supporting document that goes with this presentation. So I'll do some screenshots of this too. It's very specific the way I have this particular Pyburn Galvo grip set up that I like to use. So you can see I've got my split size, got it on the Y-axis, steps per rotation, I dialed in at 48,000. And then we're gonna have to change this to 74.92 millimeters, 74.92 millimeters. And you can see that that changes the circumference. Everything else, this all seems to be good. And then I'm gonna click OK. And the next thing I'm going to do is I've got my graphic here is I'm going to rotate it negative 90 degrees because I've got the bottle facing to the left, the top of the bottle. And then I'm going to hit Shift P to make sure that it's centered right in the middle of the work area. Okay, so we're all focused, we're all level. We've got our settings set up. The next thing we're going to do is I'm going to dust this bottle with a little bit of this UV Pixi Dust. This is for sale on my website. I'll list a link to it in the supporting documents. This is just some ultraviolet sensitive powder that I like to put on reflective surfaces so I can see the projection mark from the UV laser. There's lots of other ways to see it. You could use blue painter's tape, I guess, but this little powder, which is basically a mica-based powder, works really great. It wipes right off and it doesn't affect the engraving at all. And what it allows me to do is when I'm going to project my mark that I'm about to do before we start the job, I can see exactly where it's going to land. So let's go ahead and do that now really quick. Turn off the light so you can see it better. So I'm going to go ahead and click Frame on Lightburn, and you can see right now about where that graphic is going to land. Now I'm going to move it up because I like my graphic to be about right there, but I'm nice and centered on the page on Lightburn. And even though this is going way over the actual size, that's just because of distortion. What was most important to me is that the top of my graphic is going to be here and the bottom of my graphic is going to be here. So I'm just using the bounds and framing on this to figure out where my graphic is going to go. And now that we've taken all those steps down, I'm going to get my goggles on and we're going to run the job and see how we do. Now keep in mind, I'm going to run this job 4 times to make sure that I get the depth required to do the paint filling. So these projects will take a little bit longer than just doing a UV glass etching because I'm looking for depth. But the end product is so worth it, and you can charge a lot more for paint-filled, custom engraved wine bottles. So keep that in mind. And now the last step is we're going to turn on our fume extractor. We're using the FilterBox Micro, and as you can see, I have the exhaust hose taped to the tower here. Not a very fancy setup, but it's really nice because I can slide this up and down depending on what I'm working on. Like right now, I want to bring this up a little bit so it's right here collecting all the glass dust. And there's the FilterBox Micro. Great little unit, has been working very well for any application I've thrown at it, including the Com Marker Omni 1 UV. Really nice unit. So I'll list a link in my handout as well on where you can get one of these. I think they're a sponsor of Laser Maker Con too, so right on, you guys. Let's run it. You see how it's running that whole shape all at once? It's not going back and forth, it's actually doing cross hatching. Pretty cool. And it's going to try to do that for every single shape it can until it runs into a shape that's too big to do it, and then it'll default to the bidirectional. You see that ultraviolet powder just lighten up? Don't worry, it's not messing up the engraving. Okay, well that finished. It took about 9 minutes, but keep in mind we were doing 4 passes. So let's get it out of there. Just wipe that off. That came out really, really nice. So we'll just release it. Came out really, really nice. That is gonna paint fill beautifully. Boom. And it's just deep enough to hold our paint. So I'm really excited to put some gold fill on this one. It's gonna be really cool. Okay, so we finally finished all of our engraving over at the Com Marker Omni 1 UV laser, and we talked about how that was done, and now it's time to teach you how we've been paint filling. And I'm gonna be honest with you and get real honest with you here. We had come up with a way previously where we were going to mask off all the glass prior to engraving, thinking that it was going to make our life easier when paint filling the engraved glass. And let's just say that that didn't work out too well. We had tried different types of laser masks, and the UV laser had no problem going through it. We even did an experiment with a liquid mask. And I'm not saying that this method cannot work in the future, but it was having some difficulties, as you might have guessed. No, no, no. That is pink. Oh. You can stop recording. But anyway, the reason I'm sharing this with you all today is because sometimes, well, most of the time, mistakes are how we learn. And I think what I was doing and the ideas that I had were just good ideas, but I was overthinking it. So with that said, let me introduce you to a way that actually works really, really well for paint filling glass, and let me show you the tools that we're going to use. So here's what you're going to want. You're definitely going to want a hair dryer or a heat gun, and that's to help dry the paint once we put it in the engraving. You're going to want to get yourself some acrylic paints, your choice. This is just what we had laying around the shop, nothing fancy. You're definitely going to want to have these 2 items. You're going to want to have a plastic razor blade and holder for the plastic razor blades. These are, sure, a lot of you are already familiar with these. They're great for peeling up labels. They're great for a lot of different crafting projects, but they're also great for paint filling glass, and we're going to show you how. And then you're actually going to also want some real razor blades. So make sure you watch closely on the application of which ones of these that we're using. One of them is going to be used to be scraping off excess paint after we put in the paint with this one. We also have some Windex, which is going to be really important, and a little bit of Methadol in case we have some heavy duty cleanup, some microfiber cloths, and of course, our beautifully deep laser etched glass that we're going to paint fill. So now that you've seen everything we're going to do, and you also know that we tried and failed with using laser mask, let's get on to the real application and how that works. All right, well, let's kick things off first with the Laser MakerCon All-Star logo, which I vectorized and lasered on this whiskey glass. So here's what we're gonna do. First things first, one of the things I like to do before I get started with paint filling is take a little bit of methanol on a microfiber cloth and just clean the engraving out. Make sure that we get good bonding inside the engraving. All right, next thing we're gonna do here, we're gonna pick our color, and I think for this one, Haley actually made a suggestion. We're gonna use metallic purple to put inside the engraving here. So I'm gonna take a little bit of that. I'm gonna put it on the opposite side of this. Ooh, that's nice. I don't know if you can see that. And we're gonna put a little bit of paint in there, and then we're gonna grab our brush. I'm gonna make sure that that's a clean brush. I've just got a little cup full of water over here, and I'm going to paint in the engraving. And I don't even have a mask on. Look, Mom, no mask. And I'm just gonna get it all inside the engraving here and just paint it all in. Boom, boom, boom. being kind of generous with it too. Not gonna lie. We're just gonna paint all the parts of the engraving. Get it all in there. This is kind of like, this process kind of reminds me of screen printing a little bit. Not gonna lie, it kind of reminds me when we figured this out and figure out this works really, really well, it kind of reminded me of screen printing. So you can see I've just got all the parts of the engraving filled in. And I'm just gonna set that aside because we're gonna move on to the next step. All right, so now that we've got lots of different paint all over the engraving, we are very generous with it. This is where we're gonna use our plastic razor blade. And you're gonna wanna have a little rag right here so you can wipe off the excess. And we basically are going to squeegee in this paint into the engraving, keeping it nice and flat along. You don't wanna go this way at any point. With round glasses, you wanna go this way. So let's go ahead and take the first swipe and then wipe off the excess. All right, and you see we have a little bit of excess paint there. I could come back here and recycle it. That looks really good. Until we get nice full coverage. Put a little bit here. There we go. Get the tippy tops up there. And I'm gonna go down to the bottom part. Wipe off a little excess there. We're getting there. The thing is you want to keep it nice and flat. And don't worry about all this excess here. We're going to try to sweep that up. We're going to show you how to clean all that up. And you don't have to go in one single direction either. You can go in multiple directions if you want to. I just like going in one direction. Let's take a look at that. So it looks like we've got a little bit here that I want to put some paint back in there. So let's grab some here. Can add a little bit more. That's the best part about this method. Take a look at it because I'm doing this upside down for you guys. Grab some here, put some more right here. See if there's any other spots. We'll just do another sweep in that area. That looks good. I like it. Maybe a little bit more down here, honestly. Excellent. So now that we've got that paint filled, I'm gonna take a little bit of a new piece of cloth here, and I'm just gonna kind of wipe away some of the big areas that are on the outside, so we have less to clean up, right? These are just some of that excess, and we're gonna teach you how to get rid of all of that. And when you're doing this wipe off, make sure you stay away from the parts that you paint filled. And then we'll set that down and we're gonna dry that with a heat gun and then come back and show you how to clean that up. After this layer dried and we looked at it by holding up to the light, we figured, oh, well, you know what? We want it to be a little bit more opaque. So we're gonna actually add another layer now that this first layer is dry, which is something you can do if you need to. Certain paints that are more translucent, you may have to do that too, but other ones, you may not have to do it too. So we're going to add a little bit more. And I'm actually, this time, just gonna put it on this end and do a sweep in the opposite direction. You approve, Haley? Haley's like you're like my hype man, hype woman. She's like hyping me up in the background here.
Woohoo, paint.
And I wanna make sure that whenever you're using the plastic scraper, that it is clean. So I'm going to clean it, make sure there's no clumps or lumps on it, and that it's just as smooth as can be. All right, so now I'm going to squeegee in another layer on top of that layer. Here we go. Ooh, yeah. Uh-huh. Haley approves. She's like, mm-hmm. Oh man, that looks great. Oh yeah, that second layer really looks nice. Definitely more opaque for sure. And I'm gonna stop messing with it and leave it. And we'll set our brush aside, and then we'll get our handy dandy brand new plastic razor blade, and we're going to sweep in one direction, nice and level. We're going to put that right into the engraving, and then we're going to scrape that off, and we'll do nice even stroke on that. Wipe that off. We're definitely getting some kind of color fade. I think this is definitely an experimental color fill.
Doable.
Yeah. And the whole idea is we're trying to keep it flat and not go into the engraving. And we're going to clean all that up in a second. But as you can see, the paint has gone into that really nicely. And it's got it in all the little details. We didn't get quite the color fade that we wanted. Maybe we should have added it like a little bit higher. An orange strip like a little bit higher would have been cool. But yeah, I think what we're gonna do now is you could actually, if you really wanted to, the whole idea is to have the least amount to clean up with the razor blade as possible. So if you can get any excess away before we dry it, that's always going to be easier for the cleanup. So we're going to dry that with the heat gun real quick, and then we'll do a cleanup and see how we did. It really only takes, with this type of heat gun, the hair dryer, maybe 2 to 3 minutes, maybe. With this kind of heat gun, and I don't even have it on high, I would say like 1 minute, and you're good. All right, now let's do a little cleanup. So I'm just getting some of that excess paint that we slopped over on the side off. Wiping that off. Got some over here. Comes right up. Now, some of you might be wondering, is this dishwasher safe? And I'm gonna go ahead and tell you right now, nope. But it's great for decorative purposes, especially like wine bottles or other, you see the other adventure fun jar that we did. We just wanted to kind of show off with this whiskey glass here. But if you are so inclined, you could use this same method with enamel paints. And that would be, I would say, much more permanent than acrylic paint. But this is just a really, and I'm only scraping this way because I'm getting off this excess out here. Going at a, I would say like a 22-degree angle across this. Get any in the middle. That's looking real nice. Kind of scrape some of that into the engraving, but we're going to get rid of that in a second. And then the final step, clean everything else off.
Put some Windex.
Oh, Gus, please, please.
A little bit of Windex. Get a clean area. Not too much, just damp. Not spraying it directly on the glass by any means. Looks so cool. There's one little part that's bothering me, right? Oh, that's actually a line in the logo. There you go. So that came out super awesome. Really neat. We'll show you a close-up that at the end here. Dude, that's sick. Come on. It works really well. All right, next on the list, we are going to tackle the wine bottle, but I thought this one would be cool to watch because when you use gold paint to fill this, it really looks cool. So first things first, again, just to recap, we're going to take our clean rag with a little bit of methanol and clean the engraving out. You can see that that methanol dries pretty quick, just to make sure I'm not getting any fuzzies in there or whatever. And I'm just gonna clean the surface. Next, I found some of this stuff. This stuff is crazy bright. So it's super bright gold foil paint, and it is like super shiny, super gold, super elegant looking in my opinion. And it really looks nice when you paint fill this wine bottle. So I'm gonna take some of my paint out here. Call it ultra metallic, ultra gold metallic. And we're gonna put a whole dollop there.
Get your own liquid gold.
I'm having too much fun. Got my brush dry. And let's mess up this bottle here. One of the things I wanted to say is that the effects of the UV laser are very similar to sandblasting. And this is exactly, a lot of this process and paint filling is done when you do sand carving with the sandblasting cabinet. But what I love about this is that while yes, this bottle took 8 minutes to engrave that deep to hold paint, I didn't have to develop a film. I didn't have to have a giant sandblasting cabinet. I didn't have to buy any medium. I didn't have to buy a giant air compressor. I didn't have to mask this off and then tape off all the rest of the bottle. That was all eliminated. The only thing I had to do was engrave and then get out my paint, fill the engraving with paint, and then clean it up. So while it is not exactly sandblasting, it is, in my opinion, an easier way to do this. And that's just my personal opinion. And I'm sorry if any of you out there are sand carvers watching. I know that you can carve deeper with sandblasting and faster, but when you take all the other accessories and making the films and developing the films and masking and all that extra time, I'm really not sure which one's better. So we've got paint all through here, and now we're gonna grab our clean plastic razor blade and we're gonna start doing our thing. And I'm gonna bring my slop rag here and let's see what we can get. And remember, don't wanna go this way. We only wanna go that way. There we go. It's really good. I like it. And we're not putting tons of pressure, but I am putting even pressure. So now I'm going to go back. I'm going to set this aside here. I'm going to clean up. Look at how quick that dries. It's like really fast. Try to catch as much as you can before it dries with this specific acrylic. Ooh, that dries fast. Yep. All right, so let's go ahead and dry it. And I don't know about you, but when I start putting a few of these in the showroom, I know my customers are gonna appreciate them, and I will be able to charge a premium for engraved wine bottles like this, because it is extra work. And you do have to have a little bit of crafty skills. Not much supplies. It's not very expensive to do. So now we're gonna get out the big guns and we're gonna start scraping away out this way, right? Start getting rid of that paint out here. Okay, I think it's time for some Windex. What do you think? Yep, for sure. Ladies and gentlemen, that is, that looks so clean. There it is. So I think from this part out, you've seen enough to know that this method works really well. So let's go. Well, that about wraps it up for my episode on UV laser engraving using the Rotary tool and then also color filling glass after it's been engraved. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial as much as I have, learning about this, figuring out the best way to do it, and coming up with an amazing way to fill glass after it's been engraved with a UV laser. And don't forget, UV lasers are great at just doing regular engraving on glass. Sometimes this is just enough for the customer and they just might want a nice frosted look. This was not color filled at all, and I do these all the time. But if you really want to wow them, definitely put some of these on display. This was the same type of bottle engraved but color filled in white, which pops even more. It really comes down to the customers. And of course, my absolute favorites, which I know is always going to wow your customers, are going to be gold filled, laser engraved, and paint filled wine bottles. These came out so elegant, and I'm definitely putting these in my showroom at my shop so all my customers will be able to see that I offer this service. It was quite fun to do, actually, and the results are just stunning, and I hope you think so too. I think that you will be absolutely tickled with how your customers are going to love this type of personalized product. Then, of course, there's all kinds of fun projects that you can do, like this Adventure Fun jar that we did, and of course, the Laser Maker Con 2025 All-Star Edition signature whiskey glass. That came out really nice as well. So as you can see, color filling glass is not as hard as you might have thought it was if you have the right equipment and you don't use a mask. So with that, I want to remind you that there is a downloadable file that goes along with this session, and in there I will list all the links to the lasers that I like to use, the settings I used on the Commarker Omni 1 5-watt UV laser, and a bunch of other resources that have to do with laser engraving glass and color filling glass, so you can have all the information you need. So with that, I hope that you enjoyed the rest of your Laser Maker Con experience, and I can't wait to see you on the next one or over on YouTube at Laser Engraving 911.